Welcome to Francis Quilts, the site dedicated to the wonderful art of quilting, with a few other fun things thrown in as well. If you like what you see here, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so that you can be notified of future videos. Hey guys, welcome back to Francis Quilts. This week I'm still having some fun doing some piecing. I haven't had time to do any in a while and it's been a lot of fun to get back to it. What I'm working on today are snowball type blocks where you have a rectangle of fabric and then you have a square over the top, you sew along the diagonal, and then you can pull it back like that to finish the piece. Now let me be honest, I was having a lot of trouble piecing these accurately. It just wasn't working. I kept thinking, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And then finally I realized what was wrong, and I realized and figured out a solution that I could use to fix that problem. And so I just wanted to share that solution with you today. The project that I'm working on currently requires adding a square onto a rectangle in a snowball sort of design. And we know that we sew down the center of that square and then we can fold it back over like that to complete that rectangle. Now, one of the ways we can do this is by drawing a line down the center of that square and then just carefully sewing along that line right there. That works great, except it just takes that much extra time to draw that line, and honestly I didn't want to spend that amount of time on it. So I did what a lot of us do, and I put a piece of tape going down here to mark where I was going to sew. So I would put it on here like this, and I would just make sure that this point down here was following along the edge of that tape. But my results were horrible. When I would push it back, it wouldn't match. I actually had a lot of problems with when I turned it over. I could see the back side of the triangle there, which told me that something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what. It finally twigged that the problem was that I did not have this piece of tape positioned correctly. It was going up. It was fine at the point here, but it was kind of probably going out a little bit this other direction. And so I tried 2 or 3 times to reposition the tape and couldn't figure out how to make it work. So I finally had an idea, and let me show you what I did. I'll move this off so you can see. I took my one square that I had drawn my line on because I knew that's exactly where it needed to go, and I put it under my machine. Let me get a little thing in there I can sew off of. I put it under my machine, just catching that little point right there, just as I came in. Okay, and then as I started sewing down, I stopped ever so often and I drew a line. I used a wet erase marker. I fully expected it to come completely off. It doesn't look like it has completely, but that's all right. I then would take a ruler and I would line it up along the line that I was sewing on and bring it down and just finish that line on my machine. So I just took this and made a little mark. Let me get it lined up here. Made a mark just along here like this to tell me where that line was supposed to go. Then I set it up a little bit further and I said, oh look, I can now stop again. So I did the same thing. I completed the line from here and just put a little mark on my machine. And then I went all the way up almost to the end and I said, okay, that's where my point is, so I put another little mark right there. Now, so let's sew off and finish this one. So now when I have this piece that I'm looking at and I'm going to press it open or press it across like this, it's going to line up perfectly with that edge. So I have these marks on my machine. So I used those marks and I took my piece of tape and I just laid it along those marks right there so that it was just alongside each one of those marks. Whoops. Okay. So that is my tape that I'm going to use for my guide. Let me show you how I would sew them that worked so well. So when it came time to sew, I would take my rectangle and my square and line it up carefully in the corner like that so that it fits in that corner perfectly. Then I started on this edge right here and I'm going to run my needle into that point. Get it lined up perfectly again. And I'm going to come under here and I'm going to sew until I hit that point. As soon as I hit that point, now look, my fabric has shifted over here. Before I sew any further other than that first stitch, I'm going to move this so that it lines up exactly with that. So let's sew down here, and now I'm going to sew slowly, watching this edge as it goes along the tape. when I run out of tape, I'm going to go back now to really eyeing it right here and watching so that when I finish it, I'm right in that corner. Okay, let's pull it out and have a look. Again, I've sewn just along here. I haven't had to mark anything. Now I can open this up and press. Let me give it a press. So when I press it, you can see it fits perfectly in that corner. When I look on the back, I don't have any excess. So that tells me that that is perfectly in place. And I will remind you too that it really helps to go ahead and iron it first, make sure it fits, and then open it up and cut along here to cut that extra part off. But remember to press first before you actually do the cut. It really helps this bias to lay a lot flatter. So I was amazed at how much difference it made when I had my tape actually positioned in the right place. Let me show you one that I did before. This one right here, you can see the seam that I did after I had fixed it, but look closely here and you can see all of those stitches right there. Those were the ones that when I was doing it with the first piece of tape that wasn't positioned properly, that's the seam I was getting. So you can easily see why it wasn't fitting properly when I would fold it across. So having this exactly in the right place, the only way that works is by having this tape in exactly the right place. I had honestly considered actually physically drawing a line on here with a Sharpie, so I really am okay with those two little guidelines showing right there. It just means that whenever I get ready to do something like this again, I can easily take my tape, line it up along those guidelines, and be ready to go again. So that's a nice easy solution. Doesn't cost you anything except a piece of masking tape, and I'm really pleased with how much it has helped my piecing on these particular units. So now I just have about 80 more of them to do, and I'll start putting some things together. Thanks for joining me here on Francis Quilts, and I'll see you next time. Remember, if you like what you've seen, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please check out my website and daily blog at francisquilts.com, and I can be found on Facebook and Instagram at Francis Quilts. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope to see you again soon.